Okay, well, welcome everybody. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Melinda Jones. I'm the National President of National Council of Jewish Women of Australia, and I'm also very honoured to be the Australian representative at the moment for Women Wage Peace. I've been involved for a number of years, and it's been very, very special part of my life. Before we turn to the other side of the world, though, I want to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land and paying my respects to the elders past and present of the Boon Wurrung people of the Kulin Nation. That's the place where I am in Elsternwick in Victoria, the land of the Kulin Nation, and I pay my respects also to the elders wherever you are around the country. And I think this is just such an important way that we've developed as a country, that we begin what we do by situating ourselves in history and thinking about who we are and where we are. Someone said to me the other day, the Aboriginal people are marching with the Palestinians and we shouldn't be acknowledging them and we shouldn't be thanking them and we shouldn't be paying respect. But I think they've got the wrong end of the stick. First of all, there are Palestinians who are marching with the Palestinians, but there are also every other sort of people who are marching with the Palestinians, which is very sad and unfortunate. But a number of Indigenous leaders have made a very big point of speaking out and saying something about the Jewish situation. And I think that it's worth remembering, Nova Peris put out an amazing video, which you've probably seen, but Marcia Langton, who is one of the elders, she's an elder, you know, she's one of these deeply respected women who's been around the traps of Indigenous politics for a long time, and she is somebody who everybody looks up to. She said that it was a moral outrage that people were trying to equate black sovereignty with what was going on with Gaza in some way, or the Palestinian cause. She wrote, "I fear and loathe the possibility of further loss of life in this terrible crisis. But I also fear that our multicultural society is being torn apart by people deluded about terrorism who have their protests as a cover for anti-Semitism." So, like us, Marcia Langton wants peace in the Middle East, and she wants to see that the situation is spoken about truthfully. But she also recognises where there is anti-Semitism, we have to call it out and deal with it. So,
may I just add, Warren Mundine also spoke out.
Yes, there are lots of other people we could choose, and these are people we should just remember about when we're making up our minds about how we feel about the whole situation in the post-referendum era. Anyway, I think that one of the other things is that during the last number of years, Indigenous people have come to claim their indigeneity in Australia. They've said we are the native people of this land. And Jews are doing that too. They are now saying we're the Indigenous people of the land of Israel. It doesn't tell you what you do next. It doesn't tell you how you respond to other people, but it helps you know a bit about yourself. And that's a good starting point. So for the rest of the evening, you'll be very lucky to know that you don't have to hear from me. I'm going to hand you now over to Peta Yael. Peta is not only my sister, but she has been our correspondent through the last period of time since October 7. Peta and her team have been making the videos for us about the news of what was going on. Peta's been involved in Jewish education, adult education, interfaith matters, and peace matters for a long, long time. And they're just inherent in who she is. And she's been involved as my sister in politics as well as in truth, as we've tried to navigate some of these areas like women, wage, peace, and what we should do in the situation with Israel. So Peta, I'll hand over to you.
Thanks so much. It's always wonderful to be back in Australia through Zoom or through whatever way. And it's really my pleasure today to represent a movement of which I'm very proud to be a member, Women Wage Peace. I have a story to share with you. I knew a wonderful woman called Shelagh through being part of a spiritual community. It was, if you like, an experiment in building relationships between people of different faiths, through not having events or activities, but just being with each other. And it's something that had some sort of success, but still needs a lot more work. I think Shelagh will agree with me. At some point, Shelagh said to me, quite early in the relationship, I think she said, I'm going to be sitting in a tent outside the Prime Minister's house in a form of resistance against war. It was the 12 months since the previous large Gaza incursion, which had lasted 50 days. And there was a group of women, 25 women, who each took 2 days of fasting outside the Prime Minister's house in protest against war, saying that war is no solution. Sheilagh's here on this call. She is the one that drew me into Women Wage Peace, because I did go and see her in the tent. The minute I walked in, and we didn't yet have formal statements or whatever, but I just knew this was a movement that represented my beliefs, the two of the prongs of my beliefs. I'll add a third prong in a moment, but the two of the prongs were the importance of women in making national decisions, as well as family decisions, as well as social decisions, political and diplomatic decisions, that women would be the ones who stood up. And of course, the value of working for peace. And I like the third prong, which is mine, and that is that I'm, as some of you know, I consider myself, I label myself, if we're going to use labels, as a religious Jew, and I do pray. I pray the regular prayers, and we always end our prayers with a prayer for peace. And although the phrase was given to me by a dear friend, Alec Isaacs, I've adopted it as my phrase, and that is, what's worth praying for is worth working for. And I don't believe it's good enough to pray for peace. I believe you have to be an activist for peace. So when I saw Shelagh, and actually her husband Baruch was supporting her, who was also part of the spiritual community, and other women, including our late dear mentor and inspiration, Vivian Silver, when I saw these women who had started Women Wage Peace, I was drawn in. So I'm now going to invite three women. Shoshi, if you would invite, of course, Shelagh and Angela and Yael to join me in the screen, that would be fantastic. So we already have Angela here. Angela is also a great hero and mentor of mine, because she is the coordinator of the foreign relations team of Women Wage Peace, and that's become a tremendously important part of my involvement and I think for Women Wage Peace altogether. And Yael, who is one of the co-directors of Women Wage Peace, and again, a huge inspiration. And I'm going to invite each of the three on the screen to just introduce themselves briefly, just with maybe a couple of sentences of what drew them to Women Wage Peace. How did they become involved? And I'd like to start with Shelagh, because she was the first of all of us, and the one who drew me in. So Shelagh, would you introduce yourself? And the other thing is, four of us born in four different places. Although Shelagh and I are neighbours, we also represent different parts of the country. And so I think that's also part of Women Wage Peace, that it's the cross section. So Shelagh, if you would unmute yourself and introduce yourself first, that would be fantastic. There you go.
Okay, well, you've kind of introduced me already, and that's good, because as I warned you, I'm not a great speaker. Yeah, Do I introduce myself personally? You promised me you would ask me questions.
Okay, so my first question is, Shelagh, from where do you hail?
I hail from Ireland, so I have first-hand knowledge of what it is to have what we call there the Troubles. We don't call it a conflict and we don't call it a war, but I have lived with the Troubles all my life, and was born into it. This is passed on from your grandparents, and I can see it and our ancestors, and I can see it happening here. So I saw quite a lot of similarities, parallels between what's happening where I lived in and where I decided to live. I came here actually to Israel in '66 to visit. I didn't intend to stay, but I came back and got married in '70. So here I am. I don't know, 50 years later, still married with 6 grandchildren. So I have always been very interested in talking to everybody, being connected with everybody, everyone who inhabits the land, who presently inhabit the land, because of course our history is very, very important. But actually where we're going forward from is from where we are right now. So I have always been very interested in trying to face reality, even if I didn't particularly want to see it. But there it is, and this is the only place that we can move from.
And how did you get to be involved in Women Wage Peace in that very first early event? How did you hear about
because
it?
I was always involved in peace activities, but not in different aspects. I belong to a meditation group, and with them also in the 2003 we had peace walks with Palestinian women. There was more contact and it was easier to walk to Bethlehem then than it is today. So we had peace walks from Jerusalem to Bethlehem. We had peace walks in Nazareth. We were in contact with Palestinians here in Israel and in the West Bank. I traveled to Ramallah to the peace meetings with Abu Mazen, and not that I don't see anything exactly coming from, but I believe in every act and every thought of ours influences what happens in the future. So I keep my hopes up always by being not aimless, but not looking only at the results, the immediate results. Anyway, I was in contact through them. I was in contact with many women in the South and with Vivian Silver. This was when she was in Nispad. And we had also ongoing meetings in East Jerusalem. And I don't really remember who mentioned Women Wage Peace to me the first time. But I think I heard it, like everything that is important in life. It all seems to come from different places at the same time, and it becomes as if it's you're in a spiral. So I heard about Women Wage Peace from many people, and I cannot remember exactly who I heard it from, but I know that Vivian was one of them, and there are other women in the South at the time. Mm. And when I heard about the fasting, that was really fired me up, because I thought that this was wonderful. Because in the previous some demonstrations, and I found the language very violent and not conducive to communication. And I liked the idea of a Gandhi-type resistance. And I found also that on our peace walks, it was mainly women. So I noticed for years and years beforehand that the people who make the decisions about the war are mainly men, and the women who are the ones who are talking about peace. So I thought that, and I still think that women are the way to go. They're the
Thank
ones.
you. Thank you,
So-
Sheila. You said you can't. You said you're not a speaker, but you've just given a most fantastic, fantastic response. I'm now going to turn to Angela and ask her how she became involved, and a bit about from where you hail as well, Angela, please.
Good evening, everybody. Well, I'm coming from Vienna, from Austria. I moved to Israel the first time in 1976 after school. I went to university, Jerusalem University, and studied politics and Middle East studies because I was always interested in the subject, and I always thought that in order to live here, we have to understand each other and to talk together. Okay, I finished my studies, but life brought me on another way. I entered into textiles because of my German language, and later I became independent. And my ex-husband, who is French, he was a French diplomat, and because of him, we started to move around in the world. And for 25 years, I stayed outside. Yeah, and 8 years ago, I came back to Israel, still in my textile business. But I was looking always for something else. And I went to a conference of Haaretz, of one of the main newspapers here. And over there, I met somebody from Women Wage Peace, and we started talking, and she told me, why don't you come? And that's how I started. And I went for a few months, once per month, to stand on a crossroad with a sign, go to peace, and talking to the people as a very, very low volume. And slowly, I started to get more and more involved, especially in 2017. I participated at one of the peace marches, and it was amazing. It was really shocking to me, this energy of all the women. So since then, I entered much more, and I started to go also to visit the Knesset, because we are usually going once per month, women, white with turquoise, to visit somebody, one of the member of parliament at the Knesset. Then afterwards, we had the elections coming, the 5 of them, and we had a team which was called the patrol team, where some of our members were going to the different meetings, the political meetings, to represent.
Angela, I'm going to stop you for a moment with that part, because we're going to do that talk about the structure in one moment. But in your personal story, you started going to the Knesset, but I just want you to jump, if you can, to the foreign relations aspect of how you got involved and what you do there.
I started in 2019, 2020. I started to enter the foreign relation team and started to meet the diplomats. I get especially interested in the connection with the diplomats, probably because of some kind of past that I had. And since 3 years, I'm coordinator of the foreign relation team. Mainly with supporters abroad. This is regular doing, my co-coordinator, and I'm mainly working with the diplomats.
Thank you. Regular was on our previous call with the Australian group, so some of the people here have met her, and Melinda and I were, of course, on that big march in 2017 together, and it was definitely inspiring, as was the 2023 march, which we'll talk about more in small groups. It's now my pleasure to invite Yael to introduce herself and tell us how, first of all, from where she hails, which we know the answer a little bit, but how she became involved and moved up through the movement. Thanks, Yael.
Moved across the movement. We're non-hierarchical, so
it's true.
yeah, so no, it's really important for us. So I'm not just saying it. I was born in Israel in 1976. My mother was born also in Israel. My father was born in Poland, in Warsaw, and they immigrated with his family at the late 1950s. And I haven't been politically active ever until I began my activism in Women Wage Peace. Originally, I come from academia, from legal academia in Israel. I have a PhD in law from Tel Aviv University. How I came to be an activist in Women Wage Peace. I knew Women Wage Peace probably since its initiation, because one of its co-founders, one of Women Wage Peace co-founders, Yael Admi, is my neighbor. We used to spend one Friday afternoon every month in Kabbalat Shabbat, a community Kabbalat Shabbat. And she began telling us about Women Wage Peace. I began following it. I was still writing my dissertation back then. My kids were smaller, younger, and I followed from afar. And then in October 2016, during the March of Hope, I did participate in one part of the march. But on the peak day in Qasr el-Yahoud, in the Dead Sea, I wasn't able to attend, and I sat with my family in Tel Aviv at a coffee place. We had a family event, and I scrolled my my Facebook feed, and suddenly I saw this, which you probably all can recognize, right? I saw this.
Melinda and I are in there somewhere too. We were there.
So I was in Tel Aviv when it was happening. I saw it, and I was not even thinking. The thought just popped into my head that I need to be a part of it, because this is history in the making. And the next day, I joined the Facebook team of Women Wage Peace and the digital team. And I was warned that it's a slippery slope, and everyone who warned me was right. I think you three can testify about it. And I joined as an activist. At the beginning as a volunteer. I spent 1 year in Canada at York University, where I taught courses about Israel. I was still active from Canada, from afar, all the time, because when you were in the digital team, it doesn't matter if you're located in Savion, where I'm now, or in Toronto. So then I missed another march because I was away, but I was helping to execute the live broadcast, the live stream broadcast from Canada, from Israel, from the Dead Sea, and I felt like I was there, in maybe not in body, but definitely in spirit. And then we came back from Canada. We came back to Israel. I was elected to be one of the steering committee of Women Wage Peace, and began looking for my professional way in Israeli legal academia, until one morning I woke up and said, I don't want to do it anymore. I don't want to study. I don't want to research. I don't want to teach. I don't want to write. I want to do. I researched the activism of Israeli peace, not peace, women organization at the beginning of statehood, and I felt that I need to do now. And then all the stars aligned, and for a little bit more than 4 years ago, the position for co-directors was opened. I applied. I was accepted, and in 3 days, I'm celebrating 4 years as one of the two co-directors of Women Wage Peace. The other one is Orna Shargai, my partner. And since then, it has been my day and night job. I'm responsible, and here I want to acknowledge also Vivian Silver. One of my responsibilities in Women Wage Peace as co-director, and even before that, it was research development. And I learned most of what I know about research development from Vivian. She was my teacher. She was my mentor. I mean, we all miss her so much, her wisdom, her guidance, her difficult questions that she always posed for us, you know, in order to make our decisions and our actions better and more impactful. And now I have so many things I need to consult with her and to ask her, and you know, because everything is so hectic now, and donations, and you know, how can we proceed? And I try to talk to her as much as I can, you know, like I
Wow.
talked to my mother and consulted with her, though she's not here for 13 years now. So so this is me. I
Thank
will
you.
just say two more things. First of all, is that for the past 3-4 years, I've been very privileged to be one of the main contact persons with Women of the Sun. I actually witnessed the moment in which I was there when they told us that they decided to establish their own movement. While working with us, Women Who Wage Peace, they decided to have their own movement. They established it. We had our big event two years ago announcing the partnership, and I'm really privileged to be on this team again. Women Who Wage Peace, and specifically working with Women of the Sun, gives you so many chances to, you know, to feel that you're a part of history, and this is really powerful for me personally, very motivating. And really on a very personal level, I have 2 children. I'm married. I have 2 children. They're older now. They're 22 and 19. Of course, I'm waking up every morning. I know that, like me, they were born into the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but I really hope that their future children, my future grandchildren, will born to a different reality. And this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I also want to acknowledge my parents. My father was probably not, he was not diagnosed, but he was probably post-traumatic because of wars, specifically the Yom Kippur War and the Lebanon War. He was not fighting, he was not a combatant, but he was responsible for locating and looking for missing and the missing persons and missing soldiers and captive soldiers. And he committed suicide at the age of 40 when I was 16. And my mother carried his pain for 18 years of marriage. And it took me a few years of peace activism to realize that I'm doing what I'm doing, and I wake up every morning for them as well. So
Wow.
thank you for being here and for supporting. Thank you.
And I'm so glad I didn't cut you off, because it was so important to hear that last point, Yael. Thank you. It's the first time I've heard that. So thank you. What we are going to do now is we're going to break Shoshi into 8 groups. Yes? We're going to break
I had 4, but if you'd like 8.
4. Okay, no, 4 is fine. 4 is fine. Yes, we're going to break into 4 groups. But we 4 are going to each be in 2 groups. And the task in the groups is to look at how Women Wage Peace functions, operates, structures, it's programmatically what it does. From each of us, we have obviously 4 different experiences and probably views. I mean, Yael mentioned the democratic nature of Women Wage Peace, and we'll share with you a little bit about how decisions are made, or sometimes not made, but are made. And what each group is going to try and do is create, Melinda called it a matrix, some sort of chart or matrix or plan about what you think the Women Wage Peace Australia, what elements or activities or structure it needs to have, and also what in your group, in your breakout room, what skills or talents or ideas that you have, that you carry with you as women, that you can put into that matrix, into that diagram, and what's missing. What don't you have in your group that you feel that you would like to draw on and find elsewhere or build up? So I hope that the task is clear. Melinda, do you want to add anything to that?
Yes, if you don't mind.
Not at all.
Thank you, everybody, for what you've said so far. It's been fabulous. Those of you who were here last time we met will know that we spent some time talking about the sort of activities we might engage in Australia. We didn't come to any conclusion about what they were. What we were trying to do was to brainstorm, to have a long list of activities that we could do, so different groups of people could potentially work on different things. You know, if we're going to get working as a movement, we have to do this preliminary thinking and brainstorming, and then we've got to turn it into something for something to happen. So this is like the next step. Having talked a little bit about the sorts of things we imagine that Women Wage Peace in Australia could do, we need to look at what skills we've got and what skills we don't have, what skills we think the group will need if it's going to do the sorts of tasks that you've thought of that it could do. So I'm not expecting everybody to have any answer, but everybody will have something to contribute that they do and that they think or they see. And hopefully at the end of it, we'll be able to put it together and say, well, here's sort of some of the planning. This will go into the steps to take to actually get moving as a movement.
Right.
And questions
sorry.
from it. Sorry, Peter. I just wonder if anyone's got a question before we break it. Everybody is going to do both of these activities. So half this breakout time is going to be spent being with Women Wage Peace, and the other half is going to be in your own group. Everyone back? Yeah. Hi, everybody. I hope you found that a very useful experience and meaningful as well. Peter, do you want to run through from here, or do you want me to?
I think you're quite. I just want to mention I was in two groups and they were very different from one another, but in neither group do I think we were able to really get right to the task because there were so many questions. There were so many questions. So it will be interesting to hear from the groups what they were able to do.
Well,
so
perhaps I could just start. Well, I've got you asking you what was the most interesting question that was asked of you, and something that you might want to share with everybody else once that question was asked.
I think that the challenging thing for me was the question of why we can't call for a ceasefire right now and just call for a ceasefire, and trying to explain the Israeli the nuances and the internal conflicts in Israeli society and what that might mean, and separating again personal position from being part of a movement which is, remember, Women Wage Peace is non-politically aligned, and trying to share the voices of all our members while still being a peace movement. But we're a peace movement that's an Israeli movement, and we come from all sectors of Israeli society. And I think that was for me, it was a very challenging question as to why we're not just. And Angela wants to respond as well, so I think that would be great.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something to this point, because I was saying it in the group also. We do call for humanitarian ceasefire. We don't call for an immediate ceasefire, but we definitely call for humanitarian ceasefire. This is just what I wanted to say.
No, it's a very important distinction, because it's a very important distinction.
And of course that this is a part of an agreement that will include the release of hostages. So this is what we're saying now. Yes.
So Angela, I was wondering, Sheila as well, do you have something to say about this matter?
About what matter? Sorry?
Just about the ceasefire.
I think that it is the right thing, that what we are doing right now is to call for humanitarian ceasefire. And this is actually what is hopefully going to be set into place right now, what they're discussing right now, to exchange hostages against a humanitarian ceasefire.
Sheila, you're muted. We didn't hear you.
Looking at the reality of the moment, this is the best that we can do right at this moment, and this is what has to be done. But this is not ideal. But as I said all along, we are always working within a reality, not all of which we can control. So we just have have to be.
And I will also add that negotiations for such an agreement during the war, an agreement to reach a ceasefire and release of hostages and humanitarian aid to Gaza is a very good basis for continuing these negotiations and promoting a long-lasting agreement to end the conflict. So you know, there is a cliche saying that every crisis entails an opportunity within it. So this is the opportunity. The world cannot be indifferent anymore. The Israeli public cannot be indifferent anymore. And instead of continuing to manage the conflict, and this is something that a few days ago Netanyahu was suggesting, that the plan for the day after was actually continuing to manage the conflict. And we say no, the conflict needs to be resolved, and the current tragic occasions, the massacre, the war, they're horrible, and no one wanted this, no one. But having this reality, we can take this as an opportunity to promote an agreement. And begin with an agreement for ceasefire, release of all hostages, and continuing with the long-lasting negotiations and agreement.
Okay, thank you very much. That's fantastic. I'm wondering whether do any of the others of you did you have a question that just surprised you, that you thought there was something that you'd like to share with the whole group? Did anything else come up?
Well, we're concerned about local conditions, about the level of hate which is being expressed.
Okay, could you hold on for 1 second, whoever answered? I think it was Dahlia, I'm not sure.
It was Rochelle. It was Rochelle.
It was Rochelle. We'll just come back to that in 1 second, because I just want to ask our guests one other question, and then I want to hear from the different groups, if that's all right. I'm just wondering, my other question was, if you have one lesson to give to us about how we can build from, clearly we've got our hearts in the right place. We're obviously concerned about what's going on. We want to learn more, but we also want to do something or do things. What message do you have for us?
To be informed.
But Rochelle just said to be informed. But one of the things that came up in both the groups in which I had the privilege of participating in was awareness in Australia that there are Israelis and Israeli women who are peace activists, and just making sure that the world knows that there are Israelis and Israeli women who are activists for peace, and we want their support. I remember when there was a lot of Islamic terrorism in Indonesia and around the Australian continent in the early 21st century, 1990s, 21st century. One of the things that we talked about was empowering the moderates in Islam. And one of the things that we want to do is empower the Israeli peacemakers, empower the Israeli peace movement, and empower women. But if Women Wage Peace Australia sees its role as empowering the peacemakers, I think that would be something really important.
Angela?
And of course, telling everybody as broad as you can that there are women from both sides who are willing to continue to talk. This is the most important message, I think.
Thank you. Yael?
I joined, and this is also what I said when I talked to the groups, because the world is so polarized now, and we see it all over the world, really all over the world, and I think that the people really need to know, because what they see on the news is that just fighting and killing each other, and the world needs to know that this is not the entire picture, and there is so much more happening on the ground here. I invited everyone in the groups, and I say it here in this forum. invite us. We will come. We will be there with Women of the Sun, telling about share the pain, share the horror, share the agony, and show how from this agony that we both share, it doesn't make us enemies. On the contrary, it makes us partners, because we want to raise our children in peace and security, and this is the only way that it can be done. It can be done. So invite us. Women of the Sun will come with us on Zoom at this point. Hopefully later in person, but it's too far away, geographically and situation-wise. But definitely, if you have a Zoom, for example, for students from universities who are really polarized now, and having all those demonstrations of pro-Israel, pro-Palestine, invite us and let us show the world that we're united here. And this is a very important message, a very surprising message, I think. And I really apologize. I need to I have another call in 5 minutes, and I need to refill my tea. So,
oh, thank you very much.
I would just like to add here that it's not just Israel, Palestine here, that people take a broader view of what's happening in the world altogether, and realize that conflicts are a human condition. They have always existed, they always will. And what can we do where we are in our situation, even within the 3-meter circumference around us? How can we ease the path of conflict, and so that it won't become a war? And to be in communication with people who don't agree with us. We have a tendency to feel more comfortable with those whom we agree with, and we shy away from getting into the hard issues with people that we do not agree with. And to seek these out, and to be in close communication where possible, sit and share groups, one-on-one, one with groups, and realize that conflicts come from our mind. It's not from what is happening. It's not from the religion, and it's not from the land. And it's coming from the way that we look at things, and to ask people, where is the root of their beliefs? Why are they believing? To ask questions, to get people to start thinking, and not to continue to react from their gut, because that's what's happening both in our elections and in our conflicts.
Thank you so much. Such
Can
wisdom.
I ask a question, please?
Yes.
Awesome.
Sorry.
I'm very new to this group, but
okay, Malka, just say hello. I'm Malka, and then.
Oh, hello. I'm Malka. Peter mentioned that there are Israeli women who support peace in Australia, and there are Palestinians who support peace in Australia. We need to get those groups together, because people believe when they see. And when they see Palestinian women and Jewish Australian and Israeli and whoever it is come together, then they believe that there is another opportunity and there is another option. So I think that we really need to be very practical, because we've got some immediate needs. And if there are people, Peter, or Angela, or anybody, or Yael, or anybody else knows, who we can get together, even if it's in small groups initially, who Palestinian, Jews, everybody who are in Australia, who can get together, who can lead by example, then let's share that. Otherwise, we can write, we can say all sorts of things, but until they see it, they don't believe it.
Thank you, Malka. I'm not going to let Peter or anyone else answer, because we've got 5 minutes left in the session, and our absolute next step after this is going to have to be something about how we're beginning to take action. So what I would like is one person from each group to quickly tell us what insights there were. And please send us copies of the notes from each group. I can see some people have. Who would like to start by telling us about their group? Josh, I can't see everybody.
Eva indicated she's ready to start.
Okay, Eva, thank you.
Yes, yes. Well, in terms of action, we talked about education, especially of the children, so they can be untaught to hate. That's a new expression, isn't it? And then there was the idea of action with social gatherings and food being important and cultural aspects. I can't see anyone anymore, but I hope you can see and hear me. And I suggested writing workshops of people together so they can talk about how they're feeling and read their personal writings that they would do in the group. There was talk of role models of peace to take from other groups and other leaders. And there's also that idea that there are already interfaith groups in existence. Some of them are informed by religions, and the religions get together and have been working on interfaith for a very long time, and they could be approached to, you know, supply in a way members of the opposing groups who would come together and talk. And
Did you talk about what skills there were in the room?
Could someone else comment on that? Skills that were in the room.
No, our group did not deal with that at all, what skills and what we lacked.
Although when I was in your group, somebody mentioned they had non-violent communication skills.
Yes.
In your group.
Yes, there was one.
That was Suzanne.
Great. Okay, and do we have another group that we can, I don't know what the groups were called, so I can't call them 1 or 2 or 3.
I think our group had, well, just I did the non-violent communication, but I think Dahlia had music, so singing and music, and I think there was a bit of other sort of skill set. Yeah.
Well, my suggestion was about the writing workshop, and I've run them for decades.
Yes, so there are probably a lot of skills there of things people have done in the past that they might be able to bring into this group and be as elements of the group. From the other groups, do we have any comments? Does anyone want to tell us what happened?
I'm just Ilana. I'll just give a quick summary. I'm happy for anyone else to jump in. We just had quite a few questions. There was a suggestion about a call for ceasefire, and I think we acknowledged that there's different attitudes both in Australia and within Israel, so that's a bit contentious as maybe as a starting point. And I think we did sort of acknowledge, I think, trying to think if Vivian had a suggestion about a joint peace march. It was probably more a discussion than coming up with action items today for us, I felt, but I'm happy for others in my group if I missed something to jump in and correct me there.
Anybody else from another group who'd like to comment? That's fine. If anybody could
Joanna was trying to speak, but she hadn't unmuted herself.
Oh, sorry, Joanna.
Sorry. A few of our ideas overlap with some of the ideas. I sort of have a bit of a feeling that a lot of Jewish students, for example, are not affiliated, especially at the minor universities. I would like to find a way to get everybody involved. But back to the universities, a few years ago, there was a program where everybody, I think in Australia, who was at university had to comply with a consent education that was drafted. I feel maybe we can make a program, like an ethics program that the universities could run, that's all about trying to avoid hate in its principles by getting people to examine information and try and be independent and not just sort of so easily swayed. I don't know whether things are being done of that nature, but it could be timely, although that would take time to make. And I know we have groups like Courage to Care who are doing a lot of outreach. Maybe we can tap into some of our existing groups to try and we could collaborate to make such a program with other people who may not share the same views, but who would like to see this better way for society here. Because it's very toxic at the moment to be on campus in Australia.
Can I just say something about the on campus? Like on my campus in particular, it's very anti-Semitic. It's very much focused on the pro-Palestinian movement. No one wants to be identified as Jewish or anything like that. And I'm sort of crossing in between the politics and the business department. And it's really sad that even in the politics department, it's very much frowned upon. So it'd be really great to be able to get information throughout the university that's factual and not just this social media, this is what's happening sort of crap that we seem to get fed. So yeah, something like that would be really beneficial, I think, because they're just seeing it from like Israelis are just killing Palestinians in the masses and there's no explanation or anything like that. And yeah, I just think across campus it'd be great to be able to do something.
There seems to be a lot of work that needs to be done. You know, I think that people are thinking of different things and different ideas. And one of the things we've got is that there are different sectors, you know, so if we want to address children, we're going to have to develop different sorts of programs or projects than if we want to address university students. And that's going to be different again than if we're going to address other people in other circumstances. So as you all know, this is a working group. We're trying to work out how to move forward with this. My intention is to keep going, not to stop at some point, just to say we've had enough meetings, but I want to bring us together to actually achieve something really significant. I put in the chat the link to the WhatsApp.
No, you haven't.
Oh, I haven't. I've deleted from the chat the link to the WhatsApp group. I will find a way of contacting everyone and making sure they can join we've got a WhatsApp group, the purpose of which is to give announcements about what's going on. So when the next meeting is on, we'll go through the WhatsApp group. It'll be in the NCJWA newsletter as well, of course, but that will be the most efficient way to know what's going on with this group. I am going to be asking some people to step forward. I've already had a couple of people, but if people could be in contact to say that they'd like to be involved in a working group. You don't have to have any particular qualifications. You just have to have some passion and a bit of time. And of course, you know, the busiest people always can make time. So if you're very, very busy, we want you. I just think if I had a committee, we could plan together how to take steps rather than at the moment it's my imagination, and that's not always going to be in the right direction. We have various things planned. We have a webinar in about a month's time on the day after Forum, which is been formed by some women academics to start with, looking at what happens after the war. I know there are other people who've been doing that sort of work. We had Daphna Hacker speak last week. You'll be able to see the video on our YouTube channel quite soon. But there's a lot of things going on, so keep in the loop. Put your hand up and contact me if there is any way that you'd like to be involved in helping, having a little committee meetings to move things forward. If you would like particular things from our friends in Israel, also please make suggestions. The topic and the way we managed today came out of last week's or the last previous meeting when this was suggested as what people would like. If the next meeting should be a meeting of you know, what Yael suggested, that we get some Women of the Sun now, it might be possible. Is it possible now for people from Women of the Sun to start being involved in webinars?
It could be, yeah.
Okay, and maybe that might be the next thing everyone wants, is to meet one or two of the Palestinian women. I don't know, but please let me know so we can build it into the program that we're developing. I can see everyone stretching. We've gone over time and we already took a long time. So thank you all for coming. I hope that the person who was the scribe for each group will please send me the notes from it, and I'll try and compile them in some way, and I'll put them into the next newsletter, NCJW newsletter, so everyone can read what's going on. So thank you very, very much to our guests, to Peta, to Angela, to Shelagh, and of course to Yael. And even though we don't want it to be wild, of course, everybody will please take out a minute to say thank you so much. It really was appreciated. You gave us an enormous amount of insight and courage. You give us courage. I think that's what I can say. We have lots of little fights, and they're not as big as the fights that you have, and you're still there, still going, and that's fantastic. So thank you all very much. Thank you everyone for attending. Really appreciate it, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.